Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Sitematch365. And it's an absolute honour to be presenting Waltham Forest. Many of you will have attended our annual Sitematch event taking place in London since 2012 and hosting around 50 public sector landowners each time. Each of those organisations spends the day hosting 15-minute meetings with developers, investors and influencers. And we've had some great outcomes in terms of relationships started and relationships nurtured to the point of investment and delivery in dozens of boroughs over the years. But the one overwhelming disadvantage of that Sitematch model is that if a council or a developer isn't available on that one day, they miss out. So while lockdown has meant that we can't all meet together in one room, it has also provided an opportunity for councils to select the day that they're available and to provide a free-to-view briefing on their opportunities and what developers can expect when doing business with them, and to host some 15-minute meetings one-to-one online afterwards. Any developers or investors who can't make this session now can access a video of this briefing anytime at www.sitematch365.com and arrange meetings during a second follow-up slot, which will be set by the council after this session. Our hope is that this is all going to make it easier for the development community to play its part in getting the UK economy back on the road to recovery. And we look forward to working with you all in that aim. We're going to be back in a few weeks with opportunities in Ealing and in Croydon, and there are lots more to come. But today, we're absolutely delighted that so many of you have spared the time to hear what Waltham Forest have to offer. If you like what you hear and you haven't booked a meeting yet, email Paul, P-A-U-L, at freefoxinternational.com right now. And why wouldn't you? In our experience, Waltham Forest is one of the most progressive and forward-thinking boroughs in London, with a well-established growth-orientated and open for business culture. While they're firmly protective of their residents' interests, they're keen to encourage investment that furthers those interests and helps the local economy's recovery from COVID-19. And that attitude, in our experience, extends from the leadership and members right through to officer level. So over the next 40 minutes, we're going to hear today from a developer, London Square, who can attest to that, and for two of the officers at the front line of Waltham Forest Recovery Strand, Jonathan Martin and Will Teasdale. Give us a wave, gentlemen. First, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the first ever Sitematch365, our first ever speaker, the Member for Economic Growth and Housing Development, Councillor Simon Miller. Simon, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Toby. Thank you.
I'd like to start, if I may, by asking you what's on your wish list for Waltham Forest right now in terms of development.
Well, let me start by firstly saying thank you for everyone for their interest in Waltham Forest. In fact, in Waltham Forest, we are habitually delighted at how enthusiastic people are about listening to what we have to say and coming to hear us. And absolutely, in lockdown conditions, I'm really pleased to be able to talk to so many people. So thank you all for giving up the time. So what's on my wish list? Well, I think the first thing is what everyone wants: an end to the COVID crisis and a return to really strong, positive growth. Growth that will help us get through Brexit when that happens, in whatever form it does happen. Growth that delivers for our people, that helps transform our townscapes, and that provides the services and the investment that we all want to see. But I think that's what everyone wants to see. And I think the key thing for me is what can we do to ensure that we deliver on our wish list as a borough and as a council. So firstly, is what can we do to inspire confidence? How can we make sure that we are open for business, and not just open for business, we're prepared to do business as well. So a big part of that has been about keeping essential services going, making certain that planning, for instance, kept going, so people can continue to bring forward development in confidence, knowing that if those developments are good, if they are what are going to deliver for people and deliver on the housing, they will happen and they will go through. So we'll be really keen to keep our planning service going. Absolutely proud to have had the first virtual planning committee in London, and then also the first fully virtualised. There'll be a slight difference between the two. It's about, I think on our part, demonstrating what we will do. So I'm clear we're going to have to build our way out of a recession, and it's going to be a recession that will be deeper and potentially more difficult than anything that we have known before, than anything that has been on the historical record. And that means we can't use half measures. So we are absolutely committed to all of our strategic projects that Jonathan and Will talk to when I'm done here. But more than that, we're absolutely keen to demonstrate how we are prepared to back not just those projects, but to provide the infrastructure that's necessary for developers and partners to invest with confidence. One of the reasons why we will next week be publishing an economic recovery plan to set out how we intend to do that, but also how we will support our high streets and our other businesses and ensure that we are, throughout the challenging time to come, enabling good quality, decent jobs to come forward and to drive our economy on a localised basis. But it's also why we publish our capital investment strategy, over £500 million worth of investment that the council will make over the next few years to ensure that we have those fundamentals in place so that others can build confidently on them. Does that answer your question, Toby?
It does, very comprehensively, and I hope you're whetting appetites out there in the audience. Viewers, if you'd like to put questions to our council officers and Simon, there's a Q&A function in Zoom that you're very welcome to use. We may not have time to deal with those questions today, but I guarantee you that they'll be put to the panel, and we will get answers to you, responses to you via social media and email if we run out of time. But Jonathan, this is we talked quite recently, only a month or so ago, about your wish list and about the challenges that face the borough in delivering those objectives. How have those challenges changed during the pandemic, and how difficult do you feel it's going to be to execute your recovery strand?
So I think the pandemic has changed everything. This has been a global pandemic. It has been an event of such seismic proportion that it's almost difficult to conceive of the full impacts of it. And I think we'll be still seeking to understand those impacts in 6 months' time, years' time, and in 2 years' time. I mean, the first thing is, as a borough, we were always a local authority that prided ourselves on our sound financial management, because that enabled us to invest, and it enabled us to invest with confidence. So we've gone from a borough that was in an excellent treasury position to a borough like now all the other local authorities that has had a coach and horses driven through its immediate budgetary forecasting. So that's not just the cost of meeting the impact of the pandemic, it's also the projections for future loss of revenue as businesses go under, and unfortunately they will go under, and it's about the cost of the increased costs of providing services to our residents on an ongoing basis. And so that's fundamentally challenging. Now, I think the historic response of councils in times of crisis is to try to continue to do what you've always done, but maybe do the same for a little bit less money, or seek to salami slice on an annualised basis and stand still. But that's not what we're going to do. We have to completely rethink how we go about our business as a council, what it means for us to be a council, and we have to intervene substantively and substantially in so many sectors of our economy to ensure that where we do have valuable businesses, they get to continue. Where businesses do go under, we create the space for new, high quality businesses to come up and come through in their place. And that means a total rethink in many ways. We're having to consider our role as a landlord. We're having to consider then how we intervene on the high street, because we are a borough of over 8,000 small and micro businesses, in order to make sure that as many of those businesses stay in business as possible. That may mean that we become pub landlord in a number of locations. It may mean that we have to, and does mean, in fact, that we have to completely rethink our public realm. How can restaurants who are in narrow, small Victorian spaces where it's almost impossible to social distance, and absolutely impossible to social distance and keep a viable business going, how we enable them to use our public realm so they can transform their business offering, take their business outside, and thrive and survive over the long term. That may mean the closure of really significant high streets to traffic. It's also about how we provide for attractive space, given that what we do know as a consequence of COVID, we should not be using public transport. We're all either supposed to be walking, cycling, or using cars. As a borough, we've spent the last 5 years trying to reduce car usage. So how do we ensure that that improved public realm that we've worked so hard to deliver can respond adequately to the challenges of increased car usage, or indeed compensate for that by enabling other means of getting around? So really difficult, forwarding questions that we have to answer as local politicians, but we're determined to meet that challenge. I'll just give you a couple of examples of things that have happened during the crisis. If you look at our neighbourhood services, during the crisis, there were 21, well before the crisis, there were 21 rather. 10 we stopped entirely. 10, we kept as they were, and 1, which was enforcement, we enhanced to give people confidence around social distancing and how they could go about their daily lives. Almost no one has noticed that 10 services have been stopped. Residents aren't particularly interested. They're only interested in those core functions and the ability to engage easily with the council, a sort of one-stop, one-touch council, the type of interaction that's characterised by how we use Netflix. But that's also what we want for our development partners. We want to be the best council for them to work with. We want and have that single point of contact, that easy one-touch, either means of raising issues or finding solutions that enables them to not only just to engage with us with confidence, but to bring forward development with confidence, knowing that they will have our full backing on their schemes.
So, I mean, for us in the private sector, it really does sort of beg a belief that there's an organisation that is involved so intensely in 21 services. It's, you know, how you respond to a crisis like this with that breadth of activity is astonishing. In terms of investment and development, what sort of partners are you looking to work with in getting through this pandemic towards recovery? What kind of values and experience do you want in your partners?
I'll tell you, I mean, we've spoken a number of times now, and you know that at Waltham Forest we're nothing if not ambitious. So our starting point is we want to work with the best. And the best means a whole series of things. I think we want to work with people who are capable of bringing forward really high quality new developments. We want people who are prepared to take risks, to move into mixed developments, and how you can bring forward meaningful residential development on employment land whilst retaining that employment space. We want an absolute commitment to high quality design, because for us, the corollary of increased densities, and we know we need to increase densities. You can look at our draft local plan, 27,000 units over the next 15 years. That doesn't happen by building 2 stories in the suburbs. If that means significant towns, significant development in core town centre areas. But to be able to do that and also critically create livable neighbourhoods, that means bringing forward the highest possible quality. We've got our mechanisms and our policy framework to enable that, but we want people who share that ethos, share those values, and equally are happy to buy into our core priorities as a council, which are the bread and butter of all councils, clean and safe streets, but also improving the life chances of the people who live in that area, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, and critically putting a decent roof over the heads of those people in ways that enhance the community. That's really important for us because we have 8 unique town centres that make up Waltham Forest. We don't have one overarching town centre and then ribbon high streets that run from it. We have 8 very different town centres, and we need to make sure we reinforce the character of those, we bring out their unique identity, and then we transition them and bring about transformational change where we need to. Sorry, excuse me.
No, not at all. And the breadth of your sort of town centre portfolio, if I can put it like that, is fascinating as well. When you look at the sorts of interventions that you were talking about possibly having to make in the coming weeks and months, and of course the phrase that the council might become a pub landlord opens up all sorts of possibilities in terms of things that one might have to organise in a brewery, and the council's ability to do that. So capacity and resources are going to be really under the spotlight for you, I imagine, over the coming months.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of doing what we've done before is unimaginable, and I think just as austerity unfortunately opened up all sorts of new blue sky thinking in a positive sense for local authorities, and there are those who seized it and those who didn't, and it's often those who didn't who find themselves in most difficulty now. I think exactly the same is true of COVID, and possibly potentially on a much grander scale. So we've got to use our land, our resources very differently, far more efficiently. What we can't afford is the types of nice to have things that we all like to see. Everyone wants a community centre on their corner. Well, we can't have that if it's falling apart. It doesn't serve its people well, and it doesn't bring any form of enhancement or benefit to the local area. So we're absolutely looking at how we use our estate. We're looking at how we use our people, how we create much more dynamism in our corporate structure. A really good example of that is that 20% of my directorate, so 20% of the economic growth directorate, which includes property, is a big part of our cultural portfolio. It includes our house building programme. have been redeployed to do all sorts of other things during the COVID crisis, which included people volunteering for morgue duties, for instance, as well as also working as enforcement officers, picking up the phone, working in call centres to ensure that our residents were being well cared for during this crisis. That's the start of this journey. We haven't planned out where it will go because we're not quite clear on that. If we do end up with a national unemployment rate of 10 to 15%, that journey is going to have to be much deeper and much more radical than it is if we just go through a mild and short recession. But what we do know is that we have to focus on the future. The opportunity to focus on the future is now, and it's an opportunity to think really big. That's the purpose in publishing our capital investment strategy. That's the purpose in next week publishing our economic recovery plan. And for us, we see this as the start of something potentially extraordinary, where we take Waltham Forest from strength to further strength, rather than where we look to seek to recreate what we had 3-4 months ago, because I think, unfortunately, that is gone.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to seeing the content of that recovery plan. We've got a session on breakfast, I think, next Tuesday with our friends at Inner Circle Consulting on the practical steps that councils are taking, intervening on high streets to bring our high streets back into proper and good and productive use. And hope you can join us for that. We'd welcome your insights.
Absolutely try to. If you send me the details, I'm very happy.
Fantastic. But as you sort of look forward to this enormous swathe of activity that you're going to embark on, you've also got a 0.5 billion, 500 million pound capital investment program that you're bringing to bear. Why would you choose to do that now, and what sort of direction might that be distributed in?
So let's start with the first. I think now is the absolute moment to do it, because it's the darkest moment where you need absolute confidence, to send signals of confidence to the market, to the investment community, and to the developer community as well. You know, it was in the height of the depression of the 1930s that the New Deal was brought forward. Not that this is a New Deal, but it is a blueprint for what we want to achieve as a council. And we know, London is clearly going to be hit hard by an economic downturn. There will be changes in demographic as a consequence of COVID. And as a London borough, there's always going to be really intense competition for investment. We feel it's absolutely critical that we set out our stall early, that our success rides on us being a really attractive place in which to live if you're a resident, but a really attractive place in which to invest if you're a developer. And that means knowing that the infrastructure is going to be there, that there is a clear plan for delivering it, and a clear vision that goes with that plan of how our land can be used, how it can be shaped, that provides them the confidence for those investments to be made.
Fantastic.
So I think very much the right time to bring it forward. I'm certain there will be reasonable people, to use that now much overused phrase, courtesy of Prime Minister's Special Advisor, who may disagree.
Absolutely. I mean, what sort of ask have you got for government in all of this? What sort of role do you think government can play? And let's the art of the possible.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we need to think big and differently on planning. And when we talk about government, that's not just not national government, that's also the GLA. There is going to be a really acute crisis of local funding in local government as revenues across the piece fall. We have been told as a council to spend. We are absolutely doing that. Now, it's my anticipation that central government is only going to repay that which they have ordered us to spend. They are not going to make good losses in revenue or increases in spend that come about as a consequence of additional demand on services. So I think if that's a starting point, I would like to see all of that funding made good. I'm really concerned, not at the overall direction of a levelling up policy that sees investment go into the north, because London will always need that investment. We urgently need Crossrail too. Maybe not for the next year and a half, where there may be restrictions in place on how public transport is used, but looking to 5 years' time, looking to 10 years' time, it absolutely has to be there. So we need to keep up that critical infrastructure spend in London, and we need to ensure that to make that as easy as possible and efficient as possible, we look at sensible relaxation to the planning regime, which may be in the context of the GLA around how we bring forward mixed-use development, how we bring forward new development on industrial land or employment.
Yeah, some old chestnuts coming right to the forefront there. Simon, I hope our viewers have been given an impression here of the enthusiasm, the energy, the willingness to engage that you've always presented to us. And it's a real asset to Waltham Forest. And I very much hope that that you've done a fantastic job, in my opinion, on presenting Waltham Forest as a great place to invest. And thank you very much indeed for taking the time to do so. And I'm gonna dig now a little bit into some of the detail behind all of that, and ask Inward Investment Director Jonathan Martin. Jonathan, could you give us the sort of from the audience's point of view, what are the three most compelling reasons to invest in Waltham Forest at this time?
Hello, Toby, and hello, viewers. I believe it's one of the things that is always difficult to quantify, but it's the confidence you can convey to investors, developers, associated advisors that you're a safe place to invest. Clearly, you've heard Councillor Miller give his view from that political perspective of the objectives and our key priorities. That is absolutely a massive, massive benefit for us engaging with the various investors and developers that we do. What I've certainly heard in constant engagement with advisors, investors, architects, whoever they may be, is that constant phrase around confidence and certainty. We want to purvey confidence and certainty because the investment that is made is something that means a lot, not just to our residents and our businesses, but to those investors in terms of the safety and how we can basically prove this through a very efficient service. I think efficiency of service, absolutely core at what we deliver. If you're going to get involved in going through a planning process, you want to have certainty you're going to get an approval. You're going to want to make sure you've had the engagement of the political elements of the council, but also you've got the skilled advice of the office to guide you through that process. Because again, there are third-party funders and investors who are managing their risk in taking that step to come forward and invest in Waltham Forest. How do we purvey that? You've heard Councillor Miller. I don't need to say any more on that point because he, as usual, is very convincing and brings forward a case of absolute political steadfastness in the growth agenda. It's something that runs as a golden thread through our DNA as a borough. We've got to grow our way through everything. And we're looking at how we can potentially start to move the borough and evolve the borough through this COVID crisis. And I think one of the things we're really looking to do is get that message across to investors in a practical way. How do we do that? Councillor Miller and also Stuart Murray, our Strategic Director, have written to the investment market and also our construction sector. Why did they do that? Primarily to get the message across that we need to make sure they understand we've been open for business throughout, who they can contact as a single point of contact, who are their lead officers, but importantly, we're looking to make sure that we can offer practical help, whether it's in signposting grants and funding that we can offer, potential concessions that we can give, but also importantly, other practical ways we can help. Case in point, Toby, would be we're also going to run a number of workshops going forwards. The first one is next month, and that workshop is going to engage the construction sector. How do we deal with our smaller businesses that are in the construction sector to help them be able to skill up, improve their bidding process, but also get them to triage with other supply chains and how they can work with subcontractors. And importantly, we're going to make our own pipeline of tenders available for them to potentially bid on. So that, again, touches on part of that over £500 million investment. All of this is that confidence we believe that investors, developers, contractors, people we want to bring to the borough get when they actually engage with Waltham Forest. There are other accolades that we've had over in the past, which obviously do stand the test of time. We're still the current local authority of the year by the Municipal Journal. We are basically bouncing off the back of the Borough of Culture, which again is now being embedded into a virtual programme. The cultural offer and the heritage offer is another compelling reason why you want to invest in an area. What are the communities like? Obviously, COVID's had a massive impact on the external environment and getting out and about. But when it starts to return to some sort of normality, our cultural offer, the places we have, the heritage we have, and the natural capital, such as things like the wetlands, Leighton Jubilee Park, are all the sorts of assets that we can bring to bear to show you it's a very, very compelling argument.
So I'm a developer, and I'm thinking batten down the hatches right now. You know, caution, and be very, very careful about the decisions that I'm making. So what would you say to me to get me to convince me that now is the time that I should be investing in Waltham Forest? Why now?
I think if you want to look at the future, you have to look at the present. And if you're looking at the present, what are you doing to secure your future? So if you're battening down the hatches and you're looking at a contraction and a scarcity mindset, it will be difficult to see how you're going to grow unless you start to embrace an abundance mindset. And that abundance mindset should be, you look to pick up sites and potential opportunities where you know the local authority is going to work with you hand in hand, taking you through the process, making sure you get the quality right, but also having those other assets and facets around any particular sites you may want to pursue, to bring those forward for a high quality design, as Councillor Miller mentioned earlier, and also make sure you've got the support of the borough to encourage the mixed use of those potential sites that you do bring forward. We've got a very skilled workforce. We've got a workforce that's passionate. We want to look at how we can bring more local jobs into the area. That's a big part of our master planning process. It's a big part of our Think Work strategy, and it's obviously going to be covered in our Economic Recovery Action Plan. And all these assets and facets go towards that menu that will make sure you have the ingredients for moving out of that scarcity mentality of battening down the hatches and perhaps investing in some opportune sites in a borough that wants to grow with you. It's about evolving into the new normal, as people keep using the phrase, albeit it's over 10 or 12 years old now. But it's something we've got to work on together, and in partnership, we can see that that objective and that vision come through.
All right, well, we'll test that. We'll test that enthusiasm against Darren Nathan shortly. But lastly, my question for you about the sorts of investment that you're looking for. What kind of developer, what kind of sectors, what kind of development are you seeking for Waltham Forest right now?
Well, I think one of the things, Toby, we really want to support are long-term investors. There's a big push now around how we can bring forward new types of development, new types of investment, innovative approaches. We've been really blessed with a number of great investors and operators and developers already working in the borough. We've got new ones joining, which is great to see. And we've also got a very strong core of employers that are national and international in their perspective, and we want to really work with them to secure some of that future potential. How we do that is going to be through a close engagement with those employers, those developers, those investors, to make sure we start to target areas of growth. So we're going through our local plan refresh, as Councillor Miller mentioned. Obviously, there's got to be a whole pause as we take the impact of COVID into consideration, but we've got 18,000 new homes to deliver over the next 10 years, 27,000 new homes over the next 15, over 58,000 square metres of net additional floor space, which will deliver jobs. We want to basically have those jobs becoming far more local, as we're currently a net exporter of employees. It's how we can start to turn that back in. Because of the COVID response, home working is now pretty much a prevalent factor in every part of London. We want to make sure that the basis we already have of a strong employment base can be supplemented by even new applications around employment floor space, with also residential development, working in a co-located way, but also being appropriate to the existing environment and communities that are there. I think one of the things that I really want to stress with investors as well is particularly around how you're welcomed when you come to the borough. You'll be treated to an investor tour, whether virtual or physical. You'll be given briefings on a bespoke basis. You will be engaged with the members at the highest level, and also taken through the detail of the town centres, the high streets, the areas of growth that myself and my colleagues will talk you through in terms of the nuances, the quality you need to address, but also importantly, that certainty that you've got that point of contact from the concept all the way through to your post-planning application stage, where we then move forward.
Fantastic. It's a red carpet treatment for every developer.
We can only base it on the track record that we have and the investment we're receiving. We believe that we get the right quality investors into the borough because they share our vision, they share our purpose, and they know that everything we do is around improving the places, the communities for our residents and businesses. They will get a red carpet treatment when they come forward with high quality schemes, which we're happy to co-design with them, with our third-party advisors, whether it's through our design panel, whether it's through other advisors. But the key is you'll be given a streamlined and efficient service to ensure your investment is something you'll see an output in a reasonable time frame.
Great stuff, Jonathan. Thank you very much. And I don't know what the hotel offer currently in across the borough is, but I noticed a really interesting little piece in the New York Times. I think it was posted a couple of days ago, but it said that people who are working at home, particularly in families with young children, where it might be a bit noisy and crowded, or people who are in small flats and really don't have any kind of workspace, are starting to book themselves into hotels, and hotels are selling rooms by the hour again. And they're also making use of gym facilities, which can be locked down for sort of single person use, and the kind of food and drink offer that hotels can make available. So there's this, in my head, there's this idea of a switch between the sort of high street cafe to the high street hotel. And then I suddenly thought of King's Cross in the 1970s and hotels being booked by the hour, and wondered if that was such a good idea after all. But maybe there's some food for thought for some of your inward investment pitches, Jonathan. Let's turn to Will, and let's turn to the really exciting, the big reveal. You've got 5 new development opportunities in Waltham Forest, and I'm sure our audience is gagging to find out more. Will, what can you tell us about them?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, Toby. Good afternoon, everyone. Jonathan is going to put some slides onto the screen so that we can show you some of this. Obviously, we've only got 10 minutes, so to try and do justice to all of this, a couple of minutes on each of the opportunities is definitely not enough. But we will talk you through these and kind of illustrate a lot of the direction of travel that we've been talking about. So if we go onto the slide deck. Obviously, I think a lot of people will be familiar with the story of the borough. So let's focus on those upcoming opportunities. The first one, which is the aerial photograph in the top left there, is our Lowhall depot site in the Lea Bridge area. Then we're going to talk about Chestnut's House, which is in the top right there, which is a Georgian building we own in Walthamstow, or near Walthamstow town centre. In the bottom left, we've got the Avenue Road estate in Leytonstone and our plans for that. What a huge opportunity, and a key thing about all of this is partnership, a huge partnership opportunity with Barts Health Trust at Whipps Cross Hospital, which is illustrated in the bottom right corner. And then there are a lot of opportunities working with partners across Lea Bridge and Leyton, which will link neatly into Darren's piece, which is coming up after this. So on to the next slide. So Lowhall Depot. So to give you some context here, we are in between Walthamstow Town Centre, the west end of Walthamstow Town Centre at St James Street, and Lea Bridge, where we reopened the National Rail station there in 2016, 4 trains per hour service there. So we're kind of equidistant between that and St James Street Overground station, but also very close to Walthamstow Central and the huge interchange that's there. And this is an existing council depot site, and really the intention of what we're doing here is to re-provide a state-of-the-art depot facility, but enable that through development of the rest of the site. And this illustration from some of the feasibility work that we've been doing shows you how we can do that. So using a proportion of the site to deliver our new depot facility, but then also delivering 450, maybe even 500 homes, achieving the affordable housing on that site, as well as new commercial and community space, so that we're really creating a new neighbourhood there and linking it into the existing neighbourhood at the west end of St James Street, and the fantastic green spaces that are there on the edge of the Lea Valley. So this is a really key opportunity for us. It's a reasonably sizable site. We are doing work right now on designing up the depot, and we will be looking at procuring a contractor partner to actually deliver the depot element of this during this year. And we'll be moving towards then actually bringing on board the residential-led mixed-use partner during next year, and taking that through the planning process into 2022. So this is an opportunity that's emerging right now, and we're very keen to talk to potential partners about all of that. So moving on to the next slide. Whipps Cross. So this is, the borough is blessed, and particularly at times like this, with an incredible facility at Whipps Cross, but it's one that does need renewal. And prior to all of the COVID crisis, the government had made a very big announcement around funding for new hospitals, and Whipps Cross is one of those hospitals, so the £2.7 billion announcement that the government made. And it's fair to say that there's a real positive partnership developing here with the government, directly through the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary and their team, to actually see this come forward, working with Health Trust. This is about delivering a new state-of-the-art hospital, one that is fit for the future and will last hopefully as long as the Victorian hospital that has been there obviously for the last 150 years or so. But it's also about opportunities to unlock the rest of that site. And it is a large site. It is on the edge of Epping Forest, fantastic amenity all around that. It is also close to Leytonstone Town Centre, all of the amenities of Leytonstone Town Centre and Wood Street Town Centre, so it's in between those two. And there is the opportunity here to deliver, we believe, 1,500 new homes. Potentially more could be achieved, but that's where we're pitching it at the moment, working with the Trust, supporting infrastructure linked to the health facilities, and creating a bit more of a new neighbourhood around that as well. So we are working with the Trust on the master planning, on the planning strategy for that, developing that with them, and really looking to do further work that gets us to a point where we can have an outline plan in place during next year for the site. And this is a bit of a visualisation of how it can look. And again, working with the Trust to bring on development partners by 2022. This really is a key growth area for us, and a fantastic opportunity to work in Waltham Forest. On to the next slide. So the next opportunity that is coming up is Avenue Road Estate. So this is a council-owned housing estate in the south of Leytonstone, so in the southeast corner of the borough. The existing estate has around about 250 homes, and we've been doing feasibility work directly with our housing and capital delivery teams over the last year around the potential, and believe there's the chance to more than double the density on that estate as part of a comprehensive redevelopment plan. To give you a bit of context of exactly where South Leytonstone and the avenue is, I believe the next slide has a couple of aerial shots kind of taking that slightly further out. So there you have the map and the positioning of the estate, and I think there's some key kind of locators here. We've got Leytonstone to the north with, again, the town centre and the public transport central line there. There's also an overground station. Leyton to the west, again, central line station at Leyton. We've got the Olympic Park and Stratford, obviously just towards the southwest, all within walking distance of this site. And when it comes forward, we will have Crossrail just to the south, with Maryland Station being the closest station there. Again, that is within walking distance or a very short bus journey. So we have been doing the master planning work around that. Clearly, with estate regeneration, there is the requirement to do stakeholder engagement and the balloting process, and we'll be looking to do that early in 2021. And this slide illustrates some of the potential for that site in terms of the mix and the kind of feasibility around designs. And then in the meantime, while we continue to engage with residents on the plans for the estate, we do also want to engage with the development industry about that opportunity. So that process is running in tandem. And it's fair to say that although we're doing all of this feasibility work, we are essentially producing a notional scheme. We are not designing this up for a partner to deliver. That's something we want to bring a partner on board to help us with. Again, we will be levering in GLA funding and GLA grant to enable that to deliver 50% affordable housing as part of that. This slide illustrates well, it's a photo of the beautiful Chestnuts House, which is just to the south of Walthamstow Town Centre on Hoe Street and very close to the transport interchange there. It is a Georgian former manor house. It's had all kinds of lives since those times. It is Grade 2 star listed. I think it's fair to say it is a project that needs work. It is one where we are going to need to work with a partner to do something really quite exciting and quite innovative, because this is a historic building. It's something that Historic England have got a real interest in already. We can work with the fabric of the building, but we're not going to be fundamentally changing it overall. We think there's a great opportunity to deliver a mix of uses here. So that could, and we believe should include space for businesses, particularly thinking around the creative sector, the cultural sector, and anticipating a move where more people are working locally, where actually the polycentric model of London could be realised as a result of all of the challenges we're currently facing. But clearly, to achieve that, there needs to be enabling, and the council will need to work with a partner to help realise that, but also potential enabling development within that to achieve that vision for that site. But it's a really exciting one. And the last slide illustrates a vast area. So the whole of the Leabridge and Leighton opportunity area, and right in the top corner there you'll see reference to Lowell Depot that I started with. So that's on the southwest edge of Walthamstow, and shows you the kind of the scale of the opportunity there is through here. I'm not going to dwell too much on Leabridge at this point. Darren's going to cover Leabridge, no doubt, in a minute, which is right in the centre there, and the opportunities. But just to focus also down at Leighton, where we are working with TfL around upgrading the tube station. That's a plan that we still intend to see through with TfL. We're also looking at a new railway station. Having achieved the Leabridge one, we want to deliver a new one at Ruckock Road. So between Stratford, also connecting through to Tottenham Hale, up to Stansted Airport as well, and help unlock some of the key sites that exist there. The council has its own score centre site, which we're bringing forward in partnership with Taylor Wimpey at the moment. We've also got third-party sites, the biggest of which is the new Spitalfields market site, which the Corporation of London own, which is illustrated with some of the yellow boxes there. And as I'm sure everyone's aware, the corporation is going through its work to relocate the 3 wholesale markets that it owns, and New Spitalfields is one of those, and there is a substantial opportunity for mixed-use development with a lot of housing, a lot of commercial space, and a lot of cultural uses right on the edge of the Olympic Park to the west of Leighton there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed. And I hope you've whetted the appetites of our audience to come and invest in some of those schemes. Jonathan, is it going to be okay for us to share that slide set with everyone who's watching?
Absolutely, Toby. We're more than happy to share it. It's quite a large file, but happy to send that through, whether it's through a general PowerPoint presentation or on some other platform.
Great stuff. We'll make sure all the viewers get a copy. Darren, you're in the lucky position of already having a stake in this fantastic borough. Do you want to tell us, just set the scene a little bit first? We couldn't do any of this without our sponsors, as ever. Catalyst has been one of them, and London Square Partnerships another. What's the background to London Square Partnerships? What can you tell us about the business?
Toby, and it's nice to be on a panel finally with Waltham Forest and be joining with them, but I'll come on to that in a second. But just to put a bit of context behind the history to the question that you're asking, London Square is a 10-year-old house builder. It's a very young developer in that sense. And when Adam Lawrence, as chief exec, started it, he wanted a development company, a house builder that would be synonymous with, and has become synonymous with, some of the most beautiful buildings in London, including things like the Star and Garter, and what we've done down at Streatham even as a local site. When Adam started, he always wanted the business to work in partnership with the public sector, but realised that as a fledgling business, that wasn't necessarily possible in the early years. And therefore, when thinking about how everyone could and would work together, it was about choosing the right time and hence London Square Partners was born.
And you've been particularly active over the last sort of month or so. I mean, really unusually in the development sector. And we've talked a little about this before. I'm not sure I've watched a webinar recently without seeing you on it. So what's behind that activity? What's the kind of business model at the moment?
Look, we're fortunate enough to be in a very strong position as a business. We've had some very tough years previously where we were growing as an organization. We're now in one of the strongest positions we could be. And I think I link back to something Jonathan was saying about, really grabbing hold of opportunity. So since lockdown, over the last sort of 8 or 9 weeks, we've exchanged on 4 sites. We're looking at strategic opportunities. We're looking at how we work with public sector partners and create opportunity. And our strategy is absolutely to look at the opportunities we have now. And I started using the phrase cautiously active and cautiously acquisitive. Development speculative. And we know that. And we're just keen to get involved in the right markets, in the right places with the right boroughs and the right public sector partners as well.
We'll come back to that in just a moment. But what can you tell us in the meantime about this specific investment? What are you doing in Waltham Forest?
So it's really interesting. We're really proud. We're really excited. We've been appointed as a joint venture partner with London One Housing Group to bring forward the Lea Bridge station sites as they have become to be known. Lea Bridge is one of the gateways to the borough, and it's strikingly shy of development at the moment. I think it's probably around about 4 years ago that I started a conversation. I think the borough started their soft market testing for these Lea Bridge station sites. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, I think, but it just goes to show that there's a way of bringing these opportunities forward, and not every opportunity has to take 4 years, I promise you. But over at Lea Bridge, it's been really interesting. The council invested £12 million in Lea Bridge station. Lea Bridge was closed 30 odd years ago as the least used station in London, and now has over 600,000 people travelling through it. That is a marked statement to make in what the borough's doing. We will be delivering 300 homes. It's going to be 50% affordable. There's a new cultural hub. There's shops and offices to create a new high street around the station. And on really, as always, the cherry on the top from the council's perspective is a new station entrance that moves this sort of ramshackle station as it's become on the side road of Argyle Way, and moves it right onto the corner of the junction to make that a proper entrance to the borough from Hackney.
Fantastic. That's an exciting scheme. So what is it about Waltham Forest? Well, in your decision making, how much of the decision, and this is a slightly naive question, but give it the best shot answer. How much of your decision is based on the site itself, and how much is down to the borough, the council, the people you're going to have to work with to deliver it?
It's a combination of the two, and I don't think the site itself is the most important part. I think what you need is boroughs that have got strong leaders and members sitting around them. And Claire's a great leader. And then you've got Martin, and Jonathan's referred to Stuart, and the teams as they go through. If you've got a confident structure in those boroughs, and I'm going to be brave enough to say there's a few boroughs that have got really strong structures good enough to do stuff like this, then you start to really believe that if you take a site forward, you can have an honest and straightforward conversation about what it is that you're going to deliver. And the way the council works through those processes is, I think Waltham Forest is a brave borough. I think spending that money on the station was one show of what it's trying to do. You've got the opening of that new leisure centre, the investment in the wetlands. This is a borough that really believes about the people that live and work in the borough and how that operates. It's really about the local people and how inward investment can help the borough grow. And I know that I'm sitting on a panel with Waltham Forest and everyone expects me to say it. The thing is, I've been talking to Waltham Forest for absolutely years, wanting to get there, and London Square's finally arrived. And those officers, they encourage and they create confidence that when you want to engage with them, they will actually deliver.
Fantastic. I mean, what a great tribute to local authority. But it just sort of underlines this idea that where local authorities are strong on inward investment and development and planning, you end up with the best of the developers circling around, just desperately looking for an opportunity to work with those boroughs. And then when the opportunity arises, you can leap on it, which is not the case in all parts of London, in all parts of the country, right?
Yeah, it's opportunities are, but there are opportunities. There's a great potential for growth now through public sector delivery, for a really positive intervention through public sector partnership with the private sector and how we can work together. And it's going to be the key to unlocking a phrase that I got from one of Claire's announcements, which is building the way out of coronavirus. Great
stuff. Look, I accuse myself of being overly shallow about these matters, and I'm obviously a staunch supporter of local authorities. But I hope that what we've done here is provide you with nuggets of truth and real genuine opportunities to invest that are worthy of your attention, even in these difficult times. And for the council, a way for the development community to help the area and the UK economy as a whole to start to move towards that recovery. I mean, after a presentation like this, how could you not want to meet this council and discuss how and where to invest in Waltham Forest?